Okay. Nina Sullivan, I'm reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Katie Avard, I'm reading One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I'm Josh Vicky, and I'm reading The Catcher in the Rye. So we're going to start by giving a brief summary of our books. And so basically for mine, Catcher in the Rye is about a young boy named Holden. He's been kicked out of school a lot, and he's been moving around from school to school. And the big thing about Holden that you should know is that he's struggling with depression. And this book is kind of about his journey through New York and how he's finding his way, even with this problem that's constantly dragging him down. He's trying to find, like, he's trying to find a way to be and like what he wants to do, even though he's struggling a lot and he's very lost at times. And he never really lets you know that. He kind of keeps it hidden and never really tries to address it. In fact, he tries to keep himself from addressing it. And yeah, that's basically the main idea of what's going on.
For ours is about a group of patients on a ward in a mental hospital.
In like the 50s,
50s, 60s,
50s,
yeah.
60s.
The book was okay, Ken Kesey's the author of the book, and he was a volunteer as a patient in a mental hospital. So this book is based off his experiences then, but it's just about these patients and like how their life was before McMurphy came, who's like the main character.
Yeah.
Do you agree he's the main
Yeah, I'd
character?
agree. And
Yeah, go
it's
for
like
it.
from the perspective of Chief Bromden, who is a patient who's kind of been there for a while, but like he doesn't talk, so like people think that he is deaf and mute, but he kind of like, so people will maybe say things around him that they don't think would matter because they don't think that he can hear him, but he really actually knows a lot more about everyone, so he can, that's why he's like a really good narrator, because he can just like watch and without being totally involved.
Yeah, everything's from his point of view. It's very interesting. It's an interesting way to write a book.
Alright, so we're going to talk about also the lenses that our stories look at mental illness through. And so The Catcher in the Rye looks at depression specifically through a very personal lens and kind of shows you a lot of personal experiences with it, because it's all narrated by Holden, and it's kind of like, here's what Holden's thinking, here's how Holden's feeling. And something you notice about Holden is he never really says what he means. Like, he has this big thing about hating people who are phony and like people who aren't really themselves. But really early on in the book, he even says himself, I'll lie about anything. If I'm going to the store, I'll tell him I'm going to the opera for no reason at all. And he admits it's a problem, but he still has this huge bias against like phony people and people who are fake. But I think that's him reflecting upon the fact that he has an issue with how he acts, so he takes it out on other people. And if you guys want to talk about, I don't know, I don't want to talk for too long.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay. So, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So basically, my like kind of talking about the lens of this book, like in the book when they actually talk about mental illnesses and stuff, it's a very like within the situation in the book, they talk about it like it's very stigmatized and like there's not that much like research on it, and it's kind of just trying to get them to submit and stuff. But I feel like the author writing this book kind of serves as a purpose to like bring awareness that like this that needed to change at the time, even though it was like came out later after the fact. Like it still just brings awareness to how it actually was and what people went through and how far we've come and how far we need to go, kind of, even though it doesn't like explicitly really say that in the book. That's kind of what I see.
Something about my book is, even though like it's about mental illness and how he deals with it, they never directly talk about mental illness. Like, it's something that you know is there, but since it's narrated by Holden and he tries not to like reflect upon his own issues and not like talk too deeply about himself, it's never actually mentioned. He's like he'll say, "I'm depressed as hell about something," but he never goes further than that. Like you know it's affecting him, but he's not going to tell you that.
Okay, another thing about our book is like, yes, it's a lot of patients with mental illnesses on a ward, but they never specifically tell you what they're suffering with.
Yeah.
I mean, they point out that a couple of the patients have seizures and they get specific medication for that, but like overall, they all get the same treatments
Yeah.
and the same medications to help with these many different problems, which isn't how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, you need to kind of tailor those treatments and stuff
Yeah.
to the specific.
They're not specific enough. They're kind of just like, oh, this will do.
Yeah, because like, one treatment could help somebody a lot,
And
and it could
hurt somebody else.
yeah.
Something else I noticed about Holden is his actions seem very complex and often contradicting. Like he'll say things like, "I hate doing this," but then he'll go do it with a girl, and like a lot of times he brings up like his sexuality and talking about how sex is really disgusting to him and like how he doesn't like it, and he said at one point, "I have no business learning about it" and stuff. But then like directly after that, he called up like a prostitute and he's like trying to get her to have sex with him, and it's
How old
like,
is he?
huh?
How old is he?
He's not an adult, but he's older. I think he's like 16, 17. And he's like, he has all these internal dialogues about how some things disgust him and like they upset him, but then right after he'll go do them, and it's like, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
It's like he wants to feel something from these things, but he can't, so he just says he hates them. That's what I personally take it as.
Yeah, so that, like, I don't know, that kind of makes me think of McMurphy and how I feel like it's kind of opposite with the way he acts with what he wants or feels, because I feel like he kind of just says whatever he wants. Like, he's not going to hide what he wants, even if it's going to cause issues with, like, the nurse or other patients, and I feel like he's kind of opposite, and, like, also we don't see inside of his head, so we don't really get a inside perspective like in your book.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very out there character who does a lot of rash things just to win bets and whatnot. He's a gambler.
Mhm.
For sure. I mean, he
Yeah.
states that many times in the book. He's like, I'm a gambling man and I always win.
He like so with your character, I think it's interesting how like he like can see the other side, like both sides of like this disgusts me or then it doesn't disgust him or whatever. But then with ours, it's just I feel like it's all kind of like one-sided mostly when
Yeah.
people are like acting and talking about their own mental issues.
Because, like, all we see it through is what Chief Bromden is thinking. And he's, like, trying to figure out why McMurphy's acting this way and why he does the things he does. But we can't, like, know why
Mhm.
unless we, like, really want to get into it and analyze it.
Another aspect The Catcher in the Rye shows is how mental illness can be really destructive in ways, because Holden had this great relationship with his dorm mate. His name was Stradlater, and he's like this really nice, charming, handsome guy, and like they get along well. And so one night, Stradlater goes out with Holden's crush actually, and the same night he asks him to write a paper for him because he's going out to do that. And Holden writes about his brother who passed away. He writes about his baseball mitt and describes it because it's supposed to be a descriptive essay. And so he writes about it, and then when Stradlater gets back from the date, he just hates it and he trashes it, and that upsets Holden a lot. And they get in this huge like fight, and they start like physically fighting, and it just escalates so quickly. I think because I think Holden at the time was going through a depressive episode because he started writing about that and it kind of triggered it. And then when Stradlater got back, it just all kind of exploded because right after that fight, he decided to leave that school altogether and just go out in the city and try to find his way. And I think that was just a big turning point because it shows like how impulsive he can be when he gets depressed and like how serious his decisions are altered by it.
Yeah, like I kind of assume that like there's like a lot of tension when he is in like a state like that, and that just reminds me of like the tension in our book. Like you can literally like feel the tension of things in the ward getting tenser and like
in specific moments.
in specific moments, and like you literally just can feel it building up, and like everyone's just kind of waiting for it to explode. So like I wonder if that's similar to like when he has episodes like that.
Like especially with the moments with Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
And the way Kesey describes the way her anger builds up, it's just very, like, she gets very mad very quickly. She's usually able to keep a straight face and act like everything's fine when she's literally about to blow up at all the patients and, like, freak out.
She, like, sorry. Okay, so she, like, basically doesn't want it to look like any patients are bothering her because she's, like, holds such a high authority and like kind of is in charge of everyone, and like she doesn't want people to see her like break that authority because everyone's kind of scared of her.
Yeah.
Like once that authority's broken, then what is she gonna do?
Yeah,
like she keeps all the patients in fear, and if she's not maintaining that like I hold power over you, they're all gonna end up like McMurphy and just rebel and be outrageous.
Yeah.
Something I think Salinger does good is that he makes sure to not stigmatize Holden and like make him out to be a monster or something. Sometimes Holden has these very like humane, kind moments. Like he loves his sister a lot named Phoebe, and he would talk about how he used to take her to the museum and like do all these nice things and how he used to miss it. And there was also this part where he was talking to some nuns, and something about Holden is he always has really negative thoughts about the people he's talking to, and like will think, man, I hate this person so much, but he'll be really phony and be like, oh yeah, and just have a conversation with them. But he was thinking about how he hates like organized religion and Christianity, and he's like, I just hope they don't talk to me about it, but they just had a casual, nice conversation. And he was smoking at the time, and he accidentally blew smoke in their face, and he felt really bad, and he like apologized a bunch. And I just noticed that because you see Holden being so critical of people and so like judgmental, but at this time he just had a really nice, like polite, civil conversation with them and held his judgments and was able to just, I don't know, function how he should be able to. And I think that's just good that the author can have those moments so it doesn't look like Holden's always going to be rude and arrogant and like, because that's not how mental illness is, you know, like it's not just some constant thing where you're always awful. Like,
it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, it's like constantly changing for everyone too.
Yeah.
And that sounds really interesting. I will have to read that book sometime soon.
Like, going off that, there's no specific way in which a mental illness affects somebody. Because we all cope with things differently. We all experience things differently. So it's not like you're good.
I was just going off of that, like even if two people have the same diagnosis, like their symptoms and everyday life and the way it affects them is going to be different, and they're not necessarily going to need like the same treatment. Sorry, I interrupted you so badly.
Another really interesting part I got to in the book was Holden, like as I said, Holden never really admits to, like he'll say things but he doesn't actually admit and like look into it. But he got to this part towards like farther in the book. He gets to this part where he said, I swear to God, I'm crazy. I admit it. And I said like at that point he sounded like he was joking a little bit. So I was like, I noted that was like a very self-aware statement for him because he never really talks about these things and like he never brings it up. But then like on the next page after that he says, in italics it says, I meant it when I said I'm crazy. I swear to God I am. I was like, this is a really pivotal moment because he has all these issues that he refuses to like reflect upon and do anything about. And I'm wondering if he's actually gonna try to do something about it because he's never really admitted to it. So I think that's really important that he does because the most important thing someone struggling with mental illness can do is admit it to themselves, and like that's the first step to getting help. So I'm hoping that like this goes in a more positive direction for him.
I feel like people today are like that too. Like, we'll have a problem, but we won't ever want to talk about it
Yeah.
or go seek help somewhere. It's like there's a stigma on therapy, and like if you go, like, oh God, you are totally messed up in the head
Yeah,
and whatnot, which isn't how it should be because it genuinely helps people,
Yeah.
especially if you find the right therapist. It's like being an alcoholic, you know, you got to admit it, and then you have to go
First step.
work on that
Yeah.
Yeah.
to fix whatever it is that's affecting you or bothering you.
Yeah, like I think it's just like a conversation like that should be talked about a lot more is like how even if you are seeking help, it can be really difficult to find what type of help works for you. Like if you're seeing a therapist or someone, like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be right for you. Like sometimes you'll have to try a couple different ones, or if someone has to do medication or just other strategies, like even if you are seeking help, like I think people should talk about more how difficult it is to find exactly what works for you.
I feel like some people are scared to talk about it too. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to feel like a burden or like they don't want to have to own up to that because that's really hard for some people to like admit like, yeah, I have a problem. Like that's a really big step to take and it's really hard to deal with for some people. So I feel like it's important that people do that when they have a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Because, like, if you're not, I feel like accepting your problems and trying to actively help yourself is, like, one of the, like, for a lot of people, it's one of the best ways you can help yourself. Because if you're not trying, like, how it's kind of hard for it to
How
work.
is anyone else
Yeah.
supposed to, yeah.
So, we have, like, 17 minutes. Should we keep talking for a couple minutes?
I think we're good for close to 20.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Just
I
we're
just
running
I
out
wanted
of
to
time.
be sure.
we got to like the middle of the mod, so our discussion's a little short.
Yeah.
We talked about some good stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's it.
Okay.